Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Council for Strategic Affairs platform. Today, we are going to have a distinguished lecture by someone who has been with us on so many programs before. Those of you who registered using our flyer probably saw this announcement. And the topic for today's distinguished lecture is Northeast Asian Security, Role for Japan-India Strategic Partnership. And our distinguished speaker is Dr. Satoru Nagao. And just wanted to say that is 11 p.m. in Japan. So that tells you his commitment to our organization. Before we go on to the topic per se, a little bit about CSA. Council imparts education in the field of international relations. Council fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. The Council encourages strategic studies in general. CSA condemns terrorism in all its forms worldwide. CSA aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. We have a monthly roundtable discussion and a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert. Usually we meet on an alternative Saturday, depending upon what is convenient. We organize symposia, meetings, and conferences. We promote publications of articles on geopolitics. We have a summer internship program as well as a research training fellowship program. This is our distinguished speaker for today. You will be seeing him soon. Dr. Satoru Nagao is visiting fellow at Hudson Institute. He has worked extensively on US-Japan-India security cooperation. His PhD was on India's military strategy, the first such research thesis on this topic in Japan from a very influential university. I'm not going to go through the details of his bio. Suffice it to say that he has been widely published, has written numerous books, articles on security issues. He writes a column on Age of Japan-India Alliance at Nikkei Business. And as I said, that he has appeared in several of our programs before. So what is Northeast Asia? This map gives you a bird's eye view of Northeast Asia, with China, with Japan, with North and South Korea, and some of the islands. There are some multiple simmering conflicts in the Northeast Asia region. So there is a conflict between Japan and China on Senkaku Islands. There's a conflict between Japan versus Russia on northern territories, also called Kuril Islands. Japan versus South Korea on Takeshima Island, or what South Koreans call Dokdo Islands. And then there are issues between China versus Taiwan, Japan versus Taiwan, Taiwan versus South Korea, because all these countries have conflicting claims in South China Sea. One more map, it basically, gives more details. Now, most of the people forget. Northeast Asian, there is a resident power, which is Russian Federation. So Russia is very much there. And although usually you don't include Taiwan in the Northeast Asian security, but yes, it is very much a player. So this is some of the Kuril Islands that are disputed, 4 of them, which Japan calls Northern Territory, and these are entire Kuril Islands in Russian. So recently, the Prime Minister of India visited for annual visit to Tokyo and had a summit meeting with former Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba on August 29-30th. Both the leaders adopted a joint vision statement for the next decade and declaration on security cooperation. It was a very wide-ranging memorandum, but on security cooperation, generally practical mechanism to boost defense and security ties against traditional and non-traditional threats. India and Japan will work on increasing interoperability and synergy between their defense forces to enhance maritime security cooperation, work towards regional stability, and support the Quad framework. Those were the key features. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our distinguished speaker to talk about this particular topic. Some housekeeping rules. Please remain muted to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone to vibration mode. Please do not interrupt our esteemed speaker. Only those members of audience who identify themselves will be allowed to ask questions. All the questions are moderated through the chat room. Please be specific and precise in asking a question. Don't send lengthy comments as monologue. We are simultaneously live streaming on YouTube, and a recording will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website in future as an educational resource. We request our US-based audience to donate and support Council for Strategic Affairs, which is registered as a nonprofit in United States. So without further ado, it's my distinct pleasure to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Satoru Nagao.
It is honor for me. It is honor for me, but I mistake to prepare. My presentation is focusing on the Prime Minister's recent visit to Japan. So that's why the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that, I'm focusing on his visit to Japan, what is meaning, what happened, background realities, something like that. I try to explain. And after that, the Q&A session, if there are many questions about security in the Northeast region, especially what is North Korea's move, the South Korea's move, US-South Korea relation, or Russia's move, or China's move, or China's military parade, something like that, maybe I will talk about as an answer of these questions. That will be what I can do. And yes, thank you very much for introducing me, sir. It is a great honor, sir. Indeed, I am the title collector. I have the 16 titles now, sir. And indeed, the 16. But recently, I am also the associate professor at the Tokyo International University too. So that's why, indeed, Hudson Institute is the main title, a fellow at the Hudson Institute, but non-resident from Tokyo. But at the same time, I am working in the university also too, sir. But anyway, I try to share my presentation data. This one, I think. Can you see, sir?
Yes, we can see your PowerPoint.
Thank you very much, sir. So, contents, what happened recently, but in total, 20 or 30 minutes, so I should not speak too long. So, one by one, I will explain from now, sir. What happened when the Prime Minister Modi visited Japan is the first one. This was remarkable achievement. That was very cool one, sir. Especially it's a security-related issue. Prime Minister Modi agreed with Prime Minister Ishiba of Japan. Defense and economic security, these areas advanced very much. In the joint statement, the two prime ministers expressed serious concern of the situation in the East China Sea and the South China Sea is very important achievement. Because, of course, every time they mentioned, but recently, India's role in South China Sea is very big. India exports BrahMos missile to Philippines, or India sent naval fleet and conducted joint exercises in the South China Sea. India's presence in this region is growing. So that's why this is even if the same sentence, meaning of this sentence is growing. And but at the same time, about the security, joint declaration of the security cooperation between India and Japan is updated. That is also important. In the past, old one mentioned what joint exercises or the sharing information. These ones are line up. But this time, not only this area, but also the more higher level talk between the national security advisor level or chief of the defense staff level. So higher level with a regular one. And not only the just military area, but also the economic security area, including supply chain of the area. So, or technological cooperation is also included because indeed India and Japan have already conducted a joint arms development project, which is unmanned ground vehicle. Indeed, ground vehicle itself hasn't completed, but as a technology related with this has achieved a lot and successfully concluded as a first project between the two Ministry of Defense. So that was indeed compared with other relation, Japan and other country. It's indeed India and Japan has already achieved its advanced level. And in case of the naval ship, the unicorn antenna will be the joint development, the joint production project. In this case, original model of the unicorn antenna for naval ship is developed by Japan, but improved one will be developed for the Indian Navy. And, this is a joint project. And after that, joint production will come. That is very important because Navy relation demands secret communication. In this case, antenna is matter. And that antenna, two countries share the same antenna means that more easy to conduct joint exercises, more easy to conduct joint military operation. That could happen because of the antenna. So indeed, this antenna is very important. And of course, other technological cooperation, more advanced level, AI or quantum computer, the semiconductor industry, Japan will set up the factory of the semiconductor in India, or investment, huge investment, and people exchanges. This is a weak point of the India and Japan, but there is a important increasing the people exchange is written in the document. But that kind of thing has happened Prime Minister Modi, when Prime Minister Modi visit Japan. So that was a very important meeting. So, but you have already realized Japan is located in the Northeast Asia, the sharing border with Russia, Korea, China, and Taiwan. These are the region. So why such kind of the country in Far East focusing on India? It's a matter, and that is a basic question every time I try to analysis. And indeed, there are some reasons, but the important reason, first important reason is, of course, India is rising. That is first one. So how rise? Of course, India. Population number one. But at the same time, not only the size, but also size of the economy is also growing. This year, number 4 of the world, number 5 is Japan, and number 4 is India. A more bigger, powerful economy India has. And according to the SIPRI, the Sweden think tank, about the military expenditure, they try to compare the military expenditure. India is the number 5 level, Japan is number 10 level, far higher. Military comparison of the military expenditure is a very complicated work because of the currency is different or the category of the budget is different. Even if many countries try to publish their defense budget. So that's why the simply coordinate this and compare this. And as a result, this is India is number 1 status. In the world, there are 200 countries. The number of 5 is unbelievable level higher. So it will be the number 4, 3, I think, because first one is United States, second one is China, and Russia, Germany, and India, I think. Then the number 10 is Japan. So in this case, India is rising. How to identify? Of course, these are the numbers, but another one is activities. Military diplomacy of India proved that India is security provider in the Indian Ocean region. Now, many countries receive the support from India. So India provides security to these countries. And this is a map I made, which country receive what kind of support. But recently, as the military activities, quite attractive and large, will rely on India is uh, safeguarding the sea realm communication in the Indian Ocean, especially after the Houthi in Yemen start to attack the ship in the Red Sea. India deployed more than 10 ships and secure the area, and Houthi hesitate to attack when the Indian naval ship is there. So that's why this is very important contribution and showing presence. And media also writes many articles about it. So that's why this is the power of India. Not only the Indian Ocean. Indeed, the look east policy and act east policy under the Modi, India's contribution to security in the Southeast Asia is also important. I have already explained the contribution towards the Philippine security, but also recently India's contribution is growing to many places. For example, the typical example is of course Vietnam and Philippines both. Even if the Taiwan start to cooperate with India, of course, Malaysia's Air Force is relying on India. Singapore using the exercises field in India, regular basis, and all of the ground Army, Navy, and Air Force conducted many exercises with India or using the facility in India, even if the Singapore's equipment is Western equipment. So Indonesia, the big country in the Southeast Asia, but cooperate with India very deeply, and India provide maintenance for their fighter jet, Indonesia's fighter jet. So that's why even if the Southeast Asia, India's India's role as a security provider is growing. So India is rising. That is an important reason for Japan want to cooperate with India. But at the same time, we cannot forget the shadow of China, because China tried to dominate this region, and this is threat for Japan. That's true. We can see the military parade in China recently. Military parade against Japan. The fiction, they say the victory against Japan is a reason to celebrate 18 years anniversary of the victory against Japan. View from Japan or view from the other colleague in the Hudson Institute clearly mentioned there was no communist China when Japan invaded China. But China said this is a victory. And so that's why indeed a fiction, I believe. But at the same time, when we checked this military parade, we can see the line of bad guys, which is Xi Jinping and Kim Jong and Putin or other some came from the Belarus, the Lukashenko, the Iran, the pedestrian, the gathered in place and paraded. So this is a parade of military weapon, but a parade of the leaders too, and all of the leaders, most of the leaders are typical bad guys. And so because China imposing economic sanction to the North Korea. Despite this, North Korea's leader can join this parade and show their presence as a guest of China is challenging the rule itself, and the rule itself that they signed, they are challenging. まあ、あれとストレンジシチュエーション。まあ、anyway, China's intention towards world is challenging of, and new rule they want to set up is clear because China want to show such kind of image themselves. So that's why in the past, of course, in the past, but very important, is Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, introduced the idea in the Indian Parliament in 2007. 2007, very old age, but that address indicate two ideas, which is Indo-Pacific and Quad. That is very important because even if now this is a concept, this region is rising. That's why this concept is important. But at the same time, China, this region should not be the China-dominated region. Indo-Pacific is the idea to include all of the territorial issue of China, because China has territorial issue with Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, or South China Sea, the Southeast Asian countries, but Indian-China border and Bhutan. So that's why if we talk about counter China, Indo-Pacific is better than the other idea, the traditional Asia-Pacific, which mainly focusing on Pacific side. So Indo-Pacific, why this is useful? Not only rising region, but also the counter China is a matter. And in case of the Quad is a group of the great powers except China in the Indo-Pacific. So that's why that is very important counter China concept. But at the same time, the how is also included this idea, how to counter China. Indeed, India is very important because without India, only Pacific side is enough. Without India, US allies is Japan and Australia, so they do not need a new concept. Because of India, they need a new concept as a Quad. So that's why including India to counter China is the idea of the Shinzo Abe. So how? What kind of situation we can expect? Shinzo Abe expects three things we can say. If Japan and India cooperate, China need to divide their defense budget or asset at least at two fronts at the same time. This will contribute maintaining military balance with China. China is expanding their presence in the Indian Ocean, and sea lane of communication is there. That was sea lane of the communication of Japan is there. So Japan need to send a naval ship to protect their sea lane of communication. But if Japan sends a ship, Japan cannot use the same asset in the Pacific side. That's why Japan needs India. Indian Navy will grow the influence and to be the great power and as a security provider in this Indian Ocean. Japan do not need to send so much ship to the Indian Ocean. So that's why this is related with maintaining military balance with China. And the other thing, how to support Southeast Asia. India has already contributed security in the Southeast Asia, and Japan also contributes to Southeast Asia. So if China face not only the front of the India and Japan, but also Southeast Asia, of course they need to divide their defense budget and asset multiple direction. That's why this cooperation is important. Indeed, when we check China's military expansion, this maintaining military balance is a very important key. Because in 1950s, what happened in the South China Sea? After the France withdrew from this region, China occupied half of the Paracel Island. In 1970s, after the Vietnam War, US withdrew from Vietnam. China occupied another half of the Paracel Island. 1980s, Soviet troops in Vietnam reduced the number drastically. In this case, China occupied the Spratly Island, 6 features of the Spratly Island. In 1990s, US withdrew from Philippines. China took the mischief leaf. So every time military balance has changed, find the power vacuum, they try to occupy it. So maintaining military balance is a key to deter China. And in this case, if the India and Japan cooperate, very strong and effective way to use our resources could happen. That's why this is important. So, maintaining military balance, there are 3 methods. That is the 3 areas, how to divide the China's military force in the 3 area combination of the India-China border and the Eastern Sea, or the Indian Ocean security, the how to share their security, or the how to support Southeast Asia. These are 3 methods. So that's course Japan focusing on. This is the second reason. So, what happened this time? Indeed, when we check the joint statement, of course, there are many agreements. That is good. But at the same time, schedule of the Prime Minister Modi indicates this schedule itself. What is the message? Indeed, the Prime Minister Modi came to Japan just before he visited China. And when China holds military parade against Japan, he was already left China. This is message. Of course, SCO has happened in China, and India is a member. That's why India need to join. But this is not a message that India is ally of China. India is friend of Japan. That's why he visit before he visit China. And when China celebrate against Japan, he did not join. This is very important message for Japan. So that's why Prime Minister Modi is, yes, he is the guy to contribute to India-Japan relation. India side has the will to promote the relation. We received this message very strongly. At the same time, recently, of course, this could be related with India and US relations. This is a little bit complicated emotional situation between India and US just now, and even if from Japan start to worry about it. But at the same time, this is a little bit emotional conflict, we believe, not strategic or logical battle, I think. Because strategically, situation hasn't changed. Situation has changed because of the tactics of the President Trump's negotiation. He likes a bilateral negotiation to deal by using intimidation. So between the US and Japan, same things has happened in the past. When the President Trump tried to use intimidation, very big frustration has happened in Japan. But after the agreement, it has calmed down. Mood has calmed down. Because of the negotiation period is relatively short, that's why that hasn't that intimidation hasn't damaged too much in case of the US and Japan. But in case of the India, India's negotiation style is seeking the long-term gain. For example, the Indian talk with Russia, talk with Israel. India is checking the attitude of Russia, attitude of the Israel in the long-term span. Every time and consistently they support India. In this case, even if something, the problem has happened, Russia invade Ukraine, for example, the problem has happened, but still, this is a long-term relation. This small, not small thing, but short-term thing do not damage long-term relation. That is quite the India way. But the President Trump's negotiation style is gaining the short-term benefit. So that's why this is a deadline. If the deadline is exceeded, imposing the tariff is style of the negotiation of the Trump administration. So that's why a little bit conflict has happened between two. So, but strategic situation hasn't changed. This means that even if the emotional problem has happened, indeed long term, two countries will return to the original course. That could happen. So that's why that timing, Prime Minister Modi visit Japan as a Quad member of the as a Quad member. Japan is worrying this situation between India and US, but at the same time, if the Japan-India relation is stable, this could be the stable stone to contribute to maintain Quad. But anyway, so that's why this timing, this is also the part of the achievement, I think, silent achievement. And about China, view from Japan, what kind of things we are worrying is, of course, Prime Minister Modi joined the SCO and laughing with President Putin and President Xi Jinping. Of course, view from Japan, this is not comfortable. Of course, but at the same time, Prime Minister Modi's schedule indicates that sending the message to Japan. Prime Minister Modi and India is friend of Japan. So that's why, of course, Japanese received this message strongly. And at the same time, viewed from the strategic environment, China cannot be the trustworthy partner for India. So, as a business, yes, trade with China has the potential, even if China try to exploit some China's advantage, economical advantage as a political card. But at the same time, potential is there. That is true. So that's all. That is all. The reason Japan also trade with China. But there is a limitation too. One of the limitation is, of course, China is expanding influence in the Indian Ocean, and that could be the threat of India's national interest. When we check China's BRI or other infrastructure project in the Indian Ocean, this situation clearly indicates what China want to do. From Middle East, China import oil, and for China, most important thing, core interest is coastal cities development. In this case, stable supply of the energy resources is one thing. Stable supply of the water resources is another thing. Both indicate that for China, region around India is matter. For example, the water case, Tibet is a source of water. They are building the dam. Why? Because they want to bring the water in the Tibet to the coastal cities. And China focusing on the sea-level communication in the Indian Ocean too. When we check their infrastructure project, clearly indicated that they want to create many routes to bring the energy resources of the Middle East to China through the Pakistan, through the Myanmar, through the Malay Peninsula and Cambodia to north. Mekong River is also much of the carrying cost. So these routes are very important, and they do not want to rely on the Malacca Strait, which is the US or India can cross. So that's why this alternative route is important. So that's why we can say China's infrastructure project is not supporting the local people. That is not the purpose. Purpose is bringing the energy resources to China, and so this is the infrastructure project for China.
Dr. Nagao,
So,
I have to interrupt you. Your slides are not moving, and we are curious
Not
to look
moving?
at your. Yeah, they are just stuck at the number 1.
Oh no. What is the problem?
Okay, now it moved.
Now slideshow was ended. Okay, a little bit return and explain because most of the slide is word, but the picture is important.
Okay.
This is I show India's military diplomacy. The orange area country India is supporting their security forces or something like that. This is the same thing in the Southeast Asia version. India's contribute. Orange-colored countries received the support from India. And this one I just explained is China's project in the Indian Ocean, which indicate that China is building the route from Middle East through the Pakistan, go to Xinjiang, we go in China, or through the Myanmar to go to China, or through the Malay Peninsula and Cambodia to go to China. All of these routes do not cross the Malacca Strait. Because India can cross the Malacca Strait, US also cross the Malacca Strait. This is not security. So this infrastructure project on surface, this is supporting the infrastructure project for local, but that is not true. What China want to do is bringing the energy resource to China. And route is the matter. That is so. View from this, view from the India's national interests. China is challenging because around India they are building many infrastructure only for China. In the Indian-China border, because water resources matter, but at the same time anyway, China increasing the incursions, number of incursions. Just temporarily, yes, China try to calm down because of the China want to concentrate the Pacific side, Taiwan or Trump administration. That's why the situation in the India-China border, they try to calm down. But this is temporal because the long-term trend we can see it increasing because 2011 just 200, 2019 the 66, 663, and after that 2020 got one incident has happened. So as a long-term trend, they increase activity. More troops deployed, more incursion will happen. That is long-term trend. So anyway, temporarily it has stopped. This is temporal. So that's why in case of China, India and China cannot be the trustworthy friend. So that's why this is limitation. So finally, as a conclusion, I need to say, what is role of Japan in the Japan-India relations or security in this region? What is role? Not Japan, India-Japan, India and Japan in this case. This is mistake of my presentation data. So, okay, I want to add just now because this is not a slide. I can add just now. Okay. In this first one is India is security provider of the Indian Ocean, and Japan is the security provider in the Pacific side. So that's two countries if collaborate, this is effective way to deal with China. So that's why counter China when we think this role of the India and Japan is very important. But at the same time, when we talk about the stable relation of the Quad to deal with China, indeed, India and Japan is one of the most trustworthy bilateral relation. This relation should be stable. That's why if something has happened between India and the US or other country, still India and Japan is stable. That's why the Quad could be stable. So that's why indeed this is a stable stone. India-Japan relation is a stable stone of the Quad strategically. That is my analysis. So I'm focusing on the India-Japan relation based on the Prime Minister's recent visit to Japan. And about the Northeast Asia securities, I can talk more. Prime Minister Shiba resigned, of course. This is but that and President Lee of the South Korea swine, situation is moving. Taiwan is increasing the defense budget, and President Trump demands all of these countries, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, to increase their defense budget, just the 2% of GDP to 5% of the GDP just now. So that's why what will happen. All of these issues is rely on the Q&A time. Thank you very much for listening. For Japan, India is a hero and hope, and indeed, India is great power in the world stage. I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for a very informative and very enlightening lecture on India-Japan relationship overall in the Quad, in Indo-Pacific, specifically in Southeast Asia region. You have already said everything that needed to be said. However, there are some questions, and before I start taking questions from the audience, I have a question of my own. You know, Northeast Asia security architecture needs to be built up because of a lot of volatility there. And although India is a net security provider in Indian Ocean region, as well as in possibly Indo-Pacific, South China Sea, India is not a resident power yet in Northeast Asia region. And in this era of emerging multipolarity and strategic fluidity, if Japan and South Korea can resolve their differences on Takeshima Island, is there a possibility for a mini trilateral between Japan, South Korea, and India to enhance trilateral defense and strategic cooperation minus China and minus United States?
Indeed, unfortunately, the answer is it is very difficult, I believe, because Japan and South Korea. Japan-South Korea problem is direct link with history. But history is about meaning for now is the matter. In case of the South Korea and in case of Taiwan or other area, in this during the process of the World War II, they joined the relatively higher level decision maker. So even if the South Korea is not Japan, but that time as a Japanese, they joined the relative decision makers. So that's why view from the fact, they are also the Japanese empire. But after the World War II, they need to prove they are not. Because if Japan was lost, Japan's empire was lost, in this case, South Korea, new South Korea government as an independent government, they need to prove they are not a part of the Japanese empire. They are the victim of the Japanese empire, and they are resistance against the Japanese empire. That stance is needed. In this case, everything is rewritten and as a victim of Japanese empire. So indeed, they are official. They were the official of the Japanese empire. For example, the President Park is leading country to grow South Korea's economy in 1960s, 70s. That time, that president was lieutenant colonel of the Japanese Imperial Army. So that is one of the example. So that's why. Then that time, indeed, the royal family of the South Korea also part of the royal family of the Japan. If they blame the Japanese history as an empire, indeed, they are also the perpetrator, not the victim. So this is the reason that they need to strongly say they are the victim, not the perpetrator. But view from Japanese, this is a frustrated situation. They were Japanese at that time, and so they blame us as the victim is unfair. So that is the cause of problem. So that's why when the South Korea president faced unpopular situation, they try to use the anti-Japan card always. And because of the education, because of their efforts, every time this anti-Japan is quite popular. Japan was wrong, Japan was wrong, Japan's a bad guy, everything they start to say. And ask Japan to apologize. That just now it has stopped. So cordial relation of the US, Japan, South Korea has happened. But in the near future, it will restart again, Japanese know that. So we are preparing. This means that Japanese side do not trust South Korea. So that's why this relation has a limitation.
Okay.
Indeed, there is a good, interesting map. That is a funny map. Indeed, Northeast situation is something like that. Between Japan and South Korea, we hate each other, and South Korea and China they hate each other, and South Korea and China and Japan we hate each other. And in this case, only Taiwan say, "Oh my God, I love Japan." They said, something like that. This is one kind of the map, but as a joke, it has circulated in the Facebook.
Okay. So let's start taking questions from the audience. First question is from Dr. Shrikant Chopra. And the question is, besides funds, what do you expect the contribution by Japan in terms of personnel and vessels to be? And the second part of the question is, has Japan extricated itself from the US limitations imposed after World War II completely in terms of, having only a self-defense armed forces rather than, taking much more proactive action?
Could you please repeat the first question, sir? Second question, I understand.
First question is, besides funds, what do you expect the contribution by Japan in terms of personnel and vessels for regional security?
Recently, Japan is starting to be the security provider in this region. And okay, first question. Okay, I understand. Why you try to ask the two questions at the same time? Because the two questions is covering a little bit similar answer. Uh, Indeed, yes, it is true. Just Japan lost the war with the United States in 1945. And that time, what kind of idea Japan has as their security strategy is important and influential towards the next 15 years. Uh, Indeed, for Japan, the foreign occupation was the first experience. Last 2,000, 3,000 years history. Yes, some example has happened. China, the Mongolian Empire tried to invade Japan, or Russia sent the Baltic Fleet to attack Japan. That has happened. But in this case, Japan defeats them. So that's why last 2,000, 3,000 history, uh, only occupation Japan experience is 6 years between 1945 to 1951. So that's why for Japan's security planner, United States is a special status. Japan will not fight with the United States again. It's a very important course Japan choose after the World War II. This is because conflict with China, conflict with Russia, still Japan say there's a possibility we can win. But conflict with the United States, Japan do not want to do again. So in this case, there are some rule Japan try to set up. Firstly, it's Japan do not create the situation US worry about Japan. For example, if Japan ally with some other country, US start to doubt, okay, Japan ally with that country could be the rival against United States, and so United States start to destroy this relation, something like that could happen. So security alliance is only limited to the United States. Even if the documents in the military of defense as uh, there are the format when Japan holds a joint exercise with India or the UK or the France, every time this document need to prove, need to write, because this country is partner of the United States, we can hold the joint exercises. This is a document, just document inside of the Ministry of Defense, but as a bureaucratic process, they need to sign. So how deep this strategy, Japan will not fight with the United States again, has penetrated deep inside the bureaucratic process. So under such kind of situation, the this was the big worry, the big important. So Japan allied with the United States to avoid the conflict with the United States. That is logical. And at the same time, Japan tried to contribute to U.S. security. That's true. But at the same time, when the Vietnam War has happened, this policy faced a problem because Japan do not want to join the Vietnam War. Indeed, the Vietnam side used some southern Japanese, former Japanese Imperial Army officers as advisor of the Vietnam forces. So if Japan joins the U.S. Operation in Vietnam, this means the Japanese need to fight with Japanese. So Japanese will not want to join the war, US war, like Vietnam War. So Japan set up the many rules to try to limit. We have the right to collective self-defense, Japan say, but we cannot exercise it. Have the right but cannot exercise. What does this mean? The people cannot understand. But anyway, Japan's discussion about the right to collective self-defense is when the enemy attack United States, ally of Japan, but that enemy does not attack Japan. In this case, Japan cannot join the war with the United States. That is right. General right of the collective self-defense is okay, sorry, my explanation is a little confusing. From first, I will explain. If the United States arrive Japan was attacked, but same enemy does not attack Japan. In this case, Japan is ally of the United States. View from this, Japan should join the war to protect the United States. That is equal alliance. But Japan say we have the right of the collective self-defense. This means that we have the right to fight with the United States. But Japan cannot exercise it. So this means that Japan cannot join the war to protect the United States. Japan said. So this is very complicated explanation. So because of the constitution, Japan say why? Because the US is entering the Vietnam War and Japan do not want to join. So Japan can provide the base for the United States, but that base cannot use for the bombing to the Vietnam. So in this case, what happened is U.S. bomber take off from the air base in Japan and gathers in the air and start to bomb the Vietnam. In this case, starting point is air, not the air base in Japan. That's why Japan did not join the Vietnam War. That is logic Japan used
Thank you,
that
Dr.
time.
Nagao, for trying to explain very nuanced stance of Japan on this issue. I'll move on to the next question, which is from Dr. Admiral Kulshrestha, and I'll just paraphrase it for sake of brevity. How committed United States, which is a treaty ally for Japan, committed to protect Japan from any offensive from China?
Okay, so just a blink, I want to reply the first question, and but just a blink. During the Cold War, such kind of situation has happened. All of the rules are set. And that time, the US worry about Japan's rise. That's why that is set. But after the Cold War, completely different situation come, and the US asked Japan to contribute. So Japan's policy has changed gradually one by one, and now Japan possesses the aircraft carrier with the stealth fighter jet. And until the next March, Japan will possess a long-range missile which can reach the continent of China. And Japan start to export weapons to Philippines or Australia or other country. Japan try to be the security provider now. So that's why the limitation has, in the past, it has exist. Now it has east. That is the answer to the first question, sir. But finish this. The uh, second one is, sorry, sir.
Okay.
Yes, the first one you should finish and finished. And the second one, could you please, sir?
Second one was, has Japan extricated itself from US limitations imposed after World War II completely? You have answered that. So I move on to the next question from Admiral Kulshrestha, which is, how far US as a treaty ally of Japan committed to defense of Japan from a perceived attack from China?
Yes, of course, but currently United States is withdrawing, and that is another concerning for Japan, because view from Japan, U.S. strategy is something that looks like the Hollywood movie. What is it? In the Hollywood movie, hero is fighting most of the time in the movie, and they are nearly dead. Enemy is strong, but the final scene, big reinforcement come and eliminate all of the enemy. That was a Hollywood movies pattern. In case of the battle between US and China, of course, as a regional country, the frontline country, the Japan, Philippines, Taiwan, these countries must fight. But the recent move of the United States is they try to relocate the main forces from the Okinawa to Guam or Hawaii or Western Coast or Australia also. So they are withdrawing from Japan. Because U.S. explanation is, of course, there are the two type of the battle forces. One is static force when the enemy attacks as a fortress, they try to defend their defense line. But at the same time, some area demand reinforcement, or when they push China back. In this case, offensive capabilities needed. That's why who takes that role? Indeed, the mobilized force should take charge, which is only the United States, not Japan, not Philippines, not Taiwan. They cannot move so easily, but the US can move. So US stay in the backside. So that's why it looks like a Hollywood movie. The frontline country is a hero, but they must fight in the front line. And final scene, US come and defeat all of the enemy. So indeed, in the World War One, World War Two, the similar situation has happened. When World War One, the German attacked the U.S. ship, and the U.S. decide to join the war. But 1 year later, U.S. come to the Europe, and during the 1 year, the British need to fight, France need to fight themselves. Because of course the U.S. explanation is U.S. do not have the big army, so that's why start to conscript and train, so 1 year is needed. But at the same time, before US prepared enough, US did not try to come to Europe. That is also true. So that's why this is where this is US fight. Looks like Hollywood movie style. And World War II is same. British faced the crisis, Nazi bombing, but finally US come after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. So that is same. So because the US is democracy, US must persuade the voters. That's why they can join the war. This means that enough reason is needed. The legitimate reason is needed. And the most beneficial way is, of course, Hollywood movie style. Final scene, they could come and help the allies and partner and win the war. That is the best situation. So that's why currently Japan is facing is, of course, they try to strengthen their defense themselves. Of course, Japan should strengthen their defense because their country, of course. But at the same time, how to maintain the U.S. forces in the front line is another indeed effort Japan try to do. So U.S. Start to reorganize ground forces or marine from the just landing force to the missile forces for this situation, because easy to move, easy to fire the missile, matter move again. This means that the U.S. forces can stay the front line because they can move again and again. China, when China fires a missile, they have already relocated. But that so mobilize, and escape from the China's attack and continue to fight is possible. So U.S. effort is right way, and Japan and U.S. negotiate in this case very carefully and deeply, and so U.S. try to maintain their forces in the front line. But at the same time, we know that U.S. want to stay the backside and decisive as a decisive force or reinforcement. So that's why the U.S. That is the current situation Japan is facing in this place, and we try to maintain the U.S. involvement in this region.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nagao. We have run out of time. There were a couple of questions which we will leave. My heartfelt thanks to you for delivering this very important lecture on India-Japan strategic partnership. More so because, like, when we started, it was 11 p.m. Japan time, and now it's midnight, and you need to go and sleep also. So very thankful to you. I'm also thankful to our audience members who joined. And finally, I express my heartfelt thanks to the team CSA, Mr. Ripudaman Pachori and Mr. Rajiv Verma, who helped me at the back end to make these kind of programs possible. Thank you very much indeed for this very, elaborate presentation and then discussion. The recording of this session will be available on our YouTube channel within next few minutes. And my heartfelt thanks to each other. We shall meet again actually on September 27th when we are having a roundtable discussion. So bye-bye till that time. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. It is very honor